Hi, I hope everyone's well and staying safe. Over the last few weeks, I've been speaking to quite a few candidates about revamping their CV, and I just wanted to kind of create a video going through maybe my top 5 tips of things I've been kind of reminding candidates of. Some of it might seem really obvious, but you'll be surprised how many times these sort of things are missed out. So on to tip number 1. That is all to do with skills. So everyone tends to have a skills section on their CV. It's just about making sure the skills are the most suitable ones to have there. So we get quite a few CVs that perhaps mention teamwork and communication, and whilst these are really important skills to have in business, they aren't always the best ones to have on your CV, as everyone kind of has these. And to really stand out, I think it helps to include kind of more technical skills. So for example, we work in marketing, and we often suggest candidates include kind of marketing tools that you've used, CRM systems, and design software, just because these are all keywords that perhaps recruiters might be searching for if your CV's on a job board. On to tip number 2, and that's all to do with kind of just adding a bit more information about your current role. So we often suggest that under your job title and company, just perhaps add 1 or 2 lines explaining who the business is, what you've been doing, where you sit in the business, just to add a bit more colour to the role, especially if you're applying to roles out of sector. It'll just make it a bit clearer to companies who aren't necessarily familiar with the business you've been working for. And then tip number 3 is all to do with achievements. So we often suggest candidates maybe have 2 or 3 achievements per role, and this just avoids the CV reading a bit like a job spec. It shows what you're really proud of, some kind of key projects you've managed, and it really helps an interview, just creating a bit of talking points. If the interviewers aren't sure what to ask you, they can kind of go straight into asking about a project that's mentioned on your CV. And with achievements, maybe include some stats. For example, an increase in engagement on a social media account you are managing. Stats always kind of snazz up the CV a bit. In terms of tip number 4, that is all to do with the format of the CV. So we get a lot of CVs where the font is like size 8 and no one can actually read it. And that's because people have tried to put as much information on the page as possible. And whilst we like having a lot of information, it's very difficult for someone in an interview trying to read that as they talk to you. So we suggest a readable font, maybe 10 or 11. Make sure it's not all too cramped. So think about, is all this information on the page really necessary? Try and stick to 2 or 3 pages. And if in doubt, have someone look over it and print it out and make sure it's readable. And then that kind of leads on to tip number 5, and that's all to do with checking your CV. Obviously go through and proofread it. You don't want a spelling mistake to come up in an interview. But I think what's really important is having someone who's out of the sector read your CV. Make sure it kind of is understandable. While you want some technical terms in there, a lot of the time the HR manager that you're meeting with might not know the ins and outs of the projects you work on. So it's just making it as clear as possible, and a big part of kind of demonstrating your skills in a role, for a role, is being able to explain the technical side. So being able to get that across in paper is really helpful. So that's kind of my top 5 tips. If anyone is looking for kind of further CV advice, or looking to kind of go through their CV in quite a bit of detail, talk about how to change it for the market, feel free to get in touch. You can either reach out to me on LinkedIn, or my email is amanda@anthemconsulting.co.uk.